This video and podcast are for informational and educational purposes only and do not constitute medical advice.
You know, there is a very specific kind of frustration that comes with just, well, being human.
Oh, absolutely. The waiting game.
Right. The waiting game. You twist an ankle coming down the stairs and suddenly you were completely out of commission for 6 weeks. Or you tear a rotator cuff at the gym.
And you're looking at months of rehab.
Months, maybe surgery.
Yeah.
And just a whole lot of sitting around waiting for your body to do its job.
Yeah, it is the biological contract we all signed at birth. We are fragile, and repair is extremely expensive.
Expensive in terms of energy, you mean?
Exactly. It takes time. It takes a massive amount of cellular energy. And frankly, as we get older, the body just sort of, it stops prioritizing it.
The warranty expires.
There's a very depressing way to put it, but yes,
Yeah.
the warranty expires.
But what if you could renegotiate that contract?
Now that is the million-dollar question.
And I'm not talking about just eating better or, sleeping an extra hour a night. I'm talking about something that sounds like it was ripped straight out of a comic book.
Yeah.
What if you could, and I am quoting a very intense doctor from our research here, Wolverine the hell out of your life?
I have to say that is a very aggressive image.
It is.
But it captures the exact vibe of this topic perfectly.
It really does.
Yeah.
And that is the promise, or at least the massive internet-breaking hype surrounding the subject of today's deep dive.
Because we are looking at a compound that has absolutely exploded in popularity over the last few years.
Exploded. It's moved from the dark underground corners of bodybuilding forums right up to the front shelves of slick, high-end wellness clinics.
It's called BPC-157.
BPC-157, the body protection compound.
And honestly, if you listen to the most enthusiastic voices in this space, we're talking about a literal biological miracle.
We're talking about repairing tendons that traditional medicine says simply cannot heal on their own.
Right, fixing things like leaky gut, healing traumatic brain injuries.
Recovering from major surgery in half the expected time.
But, and this is a massive but, if you listen to the skeptics...
And we have plenty of those in our source material today.
We do. If you listen to them, it's an unproven, potentially dangerous research chemical.
Banned by the World Anti-Doping Agency, by the way.
Strictly banned. And it might, when we are going to get deep into this later, it just might be fuel for cancer.
So it is the ultimate Wild West of modern biohacking right now. The divide between the two camps is just massive.
On one side, you have clinicians and elite athletes who swear up and down that this is the absolute future of regenerative medicine.
And on the other, you have traditional MDs screaming, stop injecting experimental chemicals into your belly fat.
Which is a fair point.
Very fair. So that is our mission for you today. We are going to sift through all the bro science, the endless rat studies, and the clinical anecdotes to find out what BPC-157 actually does to the human body.
We need to figure out if this is really a forever peptide that upgrades our biology, or if it's a fast track to a tumor.
It's a remarkably high-stakes conversation. So where do we actually start?
I think we have to start with the name, because BPC-157 sounds like a license plate?
Or a droid from Star Wars.
Right. It doesn't sound like something that naturally belongs inside a human body.
So what exactly is this stuff?
So BPC-157 is a peptide.
Okay.
And I know we throw that word peptide around a lot in the wellness space, but to really get this, we need to understand what a peptide actually is structurally.
Let's break it down for everyone.
Think of proteins, right? The steak you eat, the whey powder you put in your post-workout shake, those are massive, complex, three-dimensional structures.
They're huge molecules.
Huge. They are these incredibly long chains of amino acids folded over and over on themselves.
Okay.
A peptide is just a much shorter chain.
Andrew Huberman had a really great analogy for this in the material.
The beads on a string.
Yes, the beads on a string.
It's perfect. If the string is really long, say 50 or 100 beads, we call it a protein.
And if it's short?
If it's short, usually between 2 and 50 amino acids, it's classified as a peptide.
So BPC-157 is just a short string of beads.
Exactly. It's a specific chain of exactly 15 amino acids.
Which technically makes it a pentadecapeptide.
Pentadecapeptide, yes. Good luck saying that 5 times fast.
I am not even going to try to say it again today. But here's the thing that completely surprised me when I was looking through the sources. This isn't just some random sequence of beads that a bunch of scientists threw together in a blender to see what happened.
No, not at all.
This sequence comes from us.
It does. Now, to be clear, the stuff people are buying in little glass vials is synthetic. It is made in a lab.
Right.
But the blueprint for it, the actual sequence of those 15 amino acids, that is derived from a protein found naturally in human gastric juices.
Specifically, your stomach acid.
Yes.
Now, stomach acid seems like a really odd place to find a healing miracle. I mean, I usually think of stomach acid as the stuff that destroys things, not heals them.
Right. It breaks down food. But that is exactly the key to understanding this. Think about what the stomach actually is.
It's a highly acidic pouch.
It is an incredibly hostile environment. It's full of hydrochloric acid that is literally strong enough to dissolve metal.
Which is terrifying when you think about it.
It is. Yet your stomach lining has to survive that acid 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for your entire life.
So the body has to have some kind of shield.
It needs a very robust shield, and it needs a constant repair crew working around the clock.
And that's where BPC comes in.
Exactly. BPC-157 was originally discovered and studied because researchers realized there had to be some specific mechanism protecting the stomach lining from ulcers and inflammatory bowel disease.
It's the body's internal signal to just keep the wall strong.
Keep the wall strong, repair any microscopic damage instantly before the acid eats through.
Okay, so it starts as this incredibly effective tummy protector. That makes perfect evolutionary sense. But how did we get from protecting the stomach lining to fixing a torn pec muscle or rewiring the brain? Because that feels like a massive biological leap.
That is the billion-dollar question. And to answer it, we have to go back to the early 90s in Croatia.
Croatia?
Yeah, that's where a lot of the initial really groundbreaking research on this happened. Researchers found that while BPC obviously worked locally in the gut—
Where it's supposed to be.
Right, when they administered it systemically.
Meaning injecting it directly into the bloodstream of animals.
Exactly. When they bypassed the stomach and put it in the blood, it didn't just heal the stomach, it seemed to trigger profound healing mechanisms everywhere in the body.
Everywhere.
Musculoskeletal injuries, tendons, ligaments, bone fractures, skin burns.
Wow.
It was like they had inadvertently unlocked some master key for cellular repair.
And that, predictably, is exactly where the gym culture and the biohackers latched onto it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Once the word got out that there was a compound that could heal ligaments, the fitness community was all over it.
Right. And we really have to talk about these believers, because we looked at a lot of sources for this deep dive, and one name just kept popping up with this, I don't know how to describe it, unbridled intensity.
Oh, you mean Dr. Trevor Bachmeyer?
Yes, Dr. Bachmeyer. He's a fascinating character.
He calls himself the Spartan.
Which tells you a lot right out of the gate. And his take on this compound is radically different from your standard family doctor.
Radically different is putting it very mildly. He views BPC-157 not just as a drug you take when you twist your knee, but as forever peptide.
A forever peptide. I mean, that concept alone is huge.
It's a complete paradigm shift in how we think about medicine.
It really is. His argument, and let me try to summarize his philosophy here, is that we are essentially living in a diseased civilization.
Right.
We eat processed garbage. We are stressed out of our minds constantly. We are bathing in environmental toxins from the air and the water.
The modern world is highly inflammatory.
Exactly. So he says our bodies simply cannot keep up with the microscopic damage happening every single day.
The repair crew is overwhelmed.
Yes. And so his conclusion is that taking BPC-157 daily isn't drugging yourself. It's more like, it's like upgrading your biological operating system so you can actually handle the modern world.
He had that really great analogy about the fireman.
Yes. I loved this part of the source material. He said, imagine your body has an injury or just systemic inflammation. Your natural healing capacity is like sending one tired fireman with a bucket to put out a fire at the Empire State Building.
It's just inherently not enough.
Right. It's futile. But BPC-157 is like calling in the entire fire department, the National Guard, and a specialized construction crew all at the exact same time.
And crucially, giving them brand new roads to get to the fire faster.
We will definitely get to the roads part in a minute because the mechanism is fascinating. But the list of things people are actually using this for out in the real world is staggering.
Let's look at the gym rats first.
Let's do it. We've got people injecting this for tendinitis, torn ligaments,
ACL tears, rotator cuffs.
I think Andrew Huberman mentioned the bodybuilder Ryan Crowley.
Oh man, that was a horrific injury.
I haven't seen the video, but it sounds awful.
If you haven't seen it, honestly, don't look it up while you're eating. Crowley was doing an incline press with just massive, unbelievable weight, and his pectoral muscle literally tore completely off the bone.
Ouch. Oh my God.
Yeah, it rolled all the way up into his chest, a complete structural detachment.
It sounds like a career ender.
Normally, it absolutely is. Or at the very least, you are looking at surgery followed by a year of severe muscle atrophy while you recover.
Right.
But Huberman mentioned that alongside the necessary surgery, compounds like BPC-157 are routinely used in those elite bodybuilding circles to drastically accelerate that kind of massive tissue repair.
And it works.
While with peptides, some of these guys are back in the gym lifting heavy in a matter of months, not years.
That is wild. But okay, it's not just muscles and tendons. We touched on the gut earlier, but let's go a little deeper there. Leaky gut is a term that gets thrown around constantly in wellness circles these days.
It is, and it's actually highly controversial in traditional medicine. A lot of gastroenterologists roll their eyes at the term.
Why is that?
Because it's often used as a catch-all diagnosis by internet gurus. But the actual biological mechanism behind it is very real. It's clinically called intestinal permeability.
Okay, intestinal permeability. How does that work?
Think of your gut lining like a very fine mesh screen on a window. Its job is to let the good stuff through.
Like nutrients in water.
Right, while keeping the bugs and the dirt outside. It keeps the bacteria and toxins safely inside the digestive tract so you can excrete them.
Like a bouncer at a club.
Exactly. But certain things, chronic stress, heavy alcohol use, and especially NSAIDs.
Like ibuprofen and aspirin?
Yes, those things can physically damage that screen. They literally tear microscopic holes in the mesh.
That's the leaky gut.
That's it. Toxins leak into the bloodstream and your immune system freaks out, causing systemic inflammation.
So where does BPC-157 come into this?
Well, Dr. Durst and Dr. Bachmeier both heavily emphasize that BPC-157 helps repair what are called the tight junctions in that mesh.
The tight junctions.
Basically the grout between the tiles of your intestinal wall. BPC signals the body to seal that barrier back up.
So let me get this straight. If you've been popping Advil like candy for years because of your bad back, you might have actually been shredding your own gut lining in the process.
It's a very common cycle, yes.
And BPC theoretically comes in and fixes the damage the Advil caused.
That is the leading theory. And since the gut is so intimately connected to everything else...
The microbiome, the immune system.
Exactly. Fixing the gut barrier often magically fixes systemic inflammation all over the body.
Which naturally brings us to the brain.
Yes. The brain.
This is the part of the research that honestly blew my mind a little bit. People are out here using a peptide derived from stomach acid for depression.
This is the absolute frontier of peptide science right now.
It sounds crazy. How does it even reach the brain?
The claim, and there is some preliminary data to support this, is that BPC-157 can cross the blood-brain barrier.
Which is notoriously difficult to do. The brain is locked down tight.
Very tight. But once it's in there, Dr. Bachmeier and others talk about its ability to drastically reduce neuroinflammation.
Neuroinflammation. So that's literally inflammation inside the brain tissue itself.
Right. Think of it as your brain's resident immune cells. They're called the microglia.
Microglia.
When you have chronic stress or an injury or systemic inflammation, these microglia basically freak out. They get stuck in an active, angry state.
And what does an angry brain feel like?
It feels like depression. It feels like severe brain fog.
Yeah.
Over the long term, it is strongly linked to neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's and MS.
Oh.
The idea is that BPC-157 crosses the barrier and basically tells these microglia to calm down. It turns off the alarm bells.
And there was also something in the sources about dopamine.
Right. Yes, there's a lot of talk about it modulating dopamine and serotonin signaling, potentially repairing the dopaminergic system after damage from drug abuse or just the burnout from chronic long-term stress.
I have to say, it sounds too good to be true.
It does.
I mean, usually when someone tries to sell you a cure-all, step right up, this one little vial fixes your knee, your stomach, your depression, and your brain fog.
Yeah.
You should probably check your wallet and run the other way.
It sounds exactly like snake oil.
It really does.
And as a general rule, that is the correct instinct to have. When one single compound claims to fix 20 different unrelated diseases, you should be extremely skeptical.
Right.
But the reason proponents argue that BTC actually can work for so many different tissues is because of how it functions fundamentally.
Okay, let's get into that.
It is not acting on one specific receptor, like a standard pharmaceutical drug.
Like an SSRI only hitting serotonin.
Right. BPC has what we call pleiotropic effects.
Pleiotropic. There's a good Scrabble word.
It's a great word. It basically means that it produces multiple, seemingly unrelated effects from a single compound or gene.
So it's a multitasker.
It's acting much more like the conductor of an orchestra rather than just playing one instrument.
Okay, let's unpack this conductor. How does this actually work? If I take a syringe and I inject this stuff into my body, what is it actually doing at the cellular level to fix my torn rotator cuff?
We can break it down into a few very specific key mechanisms. The biggest one, the one that every single researcher and doctor cites, is angiogenesis.
Angiogenesis, let's define that.
Sure. Angio means vessel, and genesis means creation. So angiogenesis is the literal formation of brand new blood vessels from pre-existing ones.
Okay, so it's building new plumbing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
BPC-157 regulates a very specific protein called VEGF. That stands for vascular endothelial growth factor.
VEG.
Think of VEGF as the foreman on a cellular construction site. When VEGF levels go up, the foreman starts aggressively ordering new roads and highways to be built into the tissue.
Okay, but why is that so critical for something like a sports injury?
Because of the fundamental nature of tendons and ligaments. In medicine, we often call them white tissue.
As opposed to red tissue.
Exactly. Muscles are red tissue. They're absolutely soaked in blood.
Right, they have great circulation.
So if you tear a muscle belly, it heals relatively fast because it already has a massive supply of oxygen and nutrients rushing through it constantly.
But tendons.
Tendons are more like tough leather. They have terrible blood supply naturally.
Which is why Achilles tendonitis, or tennis elbow, can linger for literally years.
Precisely. The biological supplies needed for repair just cannot physically get to the injury site in sufficient quantities.
So BPC-157 comes in.
And it essentially builds brand new capillary networks, new biological roads, right into that stagnant injury site. It forcefully delivers the oxygen and nutrients needed for repair.
It's forcing the body to supply an area it usually just ignores.
That is exactly what it's doing.
Okay, so that's mechanism A, angiogenesis, the roads. What else?
Mechanism B is all about the workers on those roads. It stimulates fibroblasts.
Fibroblasts, those are the cells that actually build the structural tissue, right?
Yes, their main job is to lay down collagen, which is the scaffolding of your body.
Right.
But here is the really cool part. BPC-157 doesn't just yell at the fibroblasts to work harder and pump out more collagen. It actually helps organize them.
Organize them how?
When you get injured and heal normally, your body is in a state of panic. It just throws down collagen as fast as possible in a messy, disorganized, crisscross pattern.
Just patching the hole quickly.
Right. And that messy patch job is what we call scar tissue.
And scar tissue is bad.
It's weak, it's brittle, and it's highly inflexible.
Which is why people re-injure the same spot over and over.
Exactly. BPC-157 seems to influence the fibroblasts to align the new collagen fibers in parallel right alongside the uninjured tissue.
Wow.
So you get repaired tissue that is structurally sound, highly flexible, and much more like the original tendon was before the injury.
I mean, that is a game changer for athletes. Because scar tissue is the absolute enemy of performance.
It is. So we have new roads, and we have better, more organized workers, and then there is mechanism C.
Let's hear it.
Mechanism C involves growth hormone.
Oh, boy. Growth hormone. That usually sounds like steroids and giant bodybuilders.
I know, but this is highly nuanced. Andrew Huberman specifically points this out in his breakdown.
What did he say?
He clarifies that taking BPC-157 does not necessarily spike your whole body's systemic growth hormone levels like taking an exogenous steroid would.
Okay, so you're not going to suddenly grow a massive Neanderthal jawline just from taking BPC.
Thankfully, no, you won't.
Good to know.
What it actually does is upregulate the receptors for growth hormone, specifically on those tendon fibroblasts we just talked about.
Effectors.
Right. It basically puts a giant cellular megaphone on the injury site.
So it makes the injured tissue hypersensitive to the natural growth hormone your body is already circulating.
Precisely. The growth hormone circulating in your blood suddenly hears the megaphone and knows exactly where to go and start working.
Okay, let's quickly recap these mechanisms because they're fascinating.
Sure.
We have new roads being built via angiogenesis and VEGF. We have better workers laying down smoother, organized pavement with the fibroblasts. And we have a megaphone calling in the heavy machinery of the body's natural growth hormone.
That is the perfect summary.
It sounds incredibly scientifically plausible.
Whoa, it is extremely plausible, in theory.
I hear a butt coming.
Yeah.
A very, very large butt.
There is a massive but. And this brings us right to the elephant in the room, the evidence gap.
Right, because we also watched the video, Dr. Pang and the guys over at Talking with Docs.
We did.
And they were, let's say, less than impressed. They were actually pretty savage about the whole thing.
They were very firm. And they really represent the voice of the traditional medical establishment in this debate.
Which is an important voice to have.
Absolutely. They emphasize that despite all this incredible mechanical theory, despite the Wolverine nicknames, despite the tens of thousands of glowing forum posts,
Yeah.
there are zero, and I really need to repeat this, zero randomized control trials in humans proving that BPC-157 actually heals musculoskeletal injuries.
Dude, Ralph.
Zero.
Not even one small study.
Well, there was one tiny study on knee pain.
Okay.
It had something like 12 human subjects, but it was entirely inconclusive, poorly designed, and it completely lacked a proper control group. Dr. Peng essentially tore it apart methodologically.
So wait, if there are literally no human trials showing this works, where is all this absolute certainty coming from? Why are so many brilliant doctors and neuroscientists so convinced it's a miracle?
Rats.
Rats.
It is a mountain of rat data.
It's always the rats.
It really is. In rodent models, BPC-157 is an absolute, undeniable superstar.
What kind of studies are we talking about?
They've done everything. You take a rat, you literally crush its muscle tissue, BPC heals it rapidly. You completely sever a rat's Achilles tendon. BPC helps it reconnect and regain strength.
Wow.
You give a rat a massively toxic dose of ibuprofen to destroy its gut. BPC completely saves the stomach lining. It works incredibly well.
If you are a rodent.
Yes. If you happen to be a rodent, BPC-157 is the greatest medicine ever invented.
But as Dr. Peng so bluntly said in his video, humans are not rats.
It's true. And this is a classic historical trap in pharmaceutical development.
How so?
You simply cannot assume that what works beautifully in a 300-gram rat will work the exact same way with the same safety profile in an 80-kilogram human.
Because we aren't just scaled-up rats.
Exactly. Our metabolisms are entirely different. Our immune complexity is different. Our lifespans are different. I mean, there are thousands of promising drugs over the last century that perfectly cured cancer or Alzheimer's in mice, but completely failed the moment they were put into human trials.
But hold on a second.
Yeah.
Andrew Huberman is a tenured Stanford neuroscientist.
He is.
He knows how clinical trials work. He knows the difference between a rat and a human. He acknowledged the complete lack of human trials on his show, but he also explicitly said that the anecdotal data is just too overwhelming to ignore at this point.
And he's not wrong. It is overwhelming. And that creates this massive tension in the medical community that is really hard to resolve.
Because you have these two completely opposing realities running parallel to each other.
Right. You have thousands of people, including high-level athletes, whose multi-million-dollar careers literally depend on their bodies functioning perfectly, reporting miraculous recoveries that defy traditional physical therapy timelines.
And you have clinicians on the front lines, doctors like Dr. Durst and Dr. Bachmeyer,
Who are looking the camera dead in the eye and saying, I don't care about the lack of a double-blind placebo study. I see this working on my real-world patients every single day in my clinic.
Bachmeyer was particularly aggressive about this point. He essentially said, if I have a patient sitting in front of me in agonizing pain, and I know this peptide fixes them, and traditional medicine has failed them, it would be unethical for me not to use it.
And I think for the average listener, that is a very valid clinical perspective. Medicine is often an art as much as it is a rigid science.
It is. Doctors prescribe things off-label all the time based on clinical experience.
But the Talking with Docs guys have a counter-argument for all those miraculous anecdotes.
They do, and it's a powerful one, the placebo effect.
The idea that if you deeply believe a treatment is going to work, your body will actually manifest that healing.
It is incredibly powerful. The placebo effect can account for 30 to 50% of pain relief in some clinical studies. It's not just in your head. It's a real neurochemical event.
Explain that.
If you spend hundreds of dollars on a fancy cutting-edge peptide,
Right.
and you physically inject yourself with a needle, which psychologically feels like a very serious medical intervention.
Much more serious than swallowing a pill.
Exactly. And you tell yourself every day, this is the Wolverine molecule. This is going to heal my shoulder.
Your brain reacts to that belief.
Your brain will release powerful endogenous opioids and anti-inflammatory cytokines. You will objectively feel better and heal faster purely because of the ritual and the belief.
So all these biohackers claiming BPC healed them, it could literally all be a massive, expensive placebo effect.
It could be. Scientifically, without a control group, we cannot rule that out.
What?
Or it could be that the science just hasn't caught up to the practice yet.
Why haven't they just done the human trials then? If it's this popular, why not just prove it?
Because clinical trials cost tens of millions of dollars.
The capitalism problem.
Always. BPC-157 is a sequence based on a naturally occurring human gastric peptide. It is extremely difficult to patent a naturally occurring sequence.
And if a pharmaceutical company can't patent it?
They can't monopolize it, and if they can't monopolize it, they aren't going to spend $50 million proving it works, because any generic lab could just copy them and steal the profits.
So it's stuck in this gray area forever.
Exactly. But honestly, the evidence gap isn't just about whether or not it effectively heals a tendon.
Right.
There is a much darker side to this lack of human data. It's about whether it's fundamentally safe.
And this brings us to the part of the research that actually genuinely scared me. The C word.
Yes.
This is undoubtedly the most critical safety discussion of this entire deep dive. If you are listening to this right now and you take absolutely nothing else away from this conversation, please listen to this part.
Absolutely.
Let's unpack the cancer controversy. Because Dr. Huberman dropped a bit of a bomb during this segment.
He did. He issued a very stark warning.
He warned that if you have a pre-existing tumor, even a tiny one you don't know about, taking BPC-157 could be incredibly dangerous.
And it all goes back to the exact mechanism we were just praising a few minutes ago.
Angiogenesis.
Angiogenesis.
Yeah.
Building the new blood roads.
Right.
Think deeply about what a tumor actually is biologically. It is a cluster of mutated cells that are growing and dividing completely out of control. Like any living, growing tissue, those cancer cells need food. They need oxygen.
They need blood.
They need massive amounts of blood. Tumors are incredibly metabolically hungry. In fact, tumors are actually highly devious.
Devious how?
They secrete their own VEGF.
Wait, the same VEGF that BPC-157 stimulates?
The exact same one. The tumor actively tricks the body into building an entire vascular highway system directly toward the cancer to feed it. It's called tumor angiogenesis.
Oh, wow.
So now imagine you decide to inject BPC-157 to heal your elbow.
And it floods my entire system with VEGF.
Right. You might be inadvertently building a superhighway system straight to a latent microscopic tumor in your body that you didn't even know you had.
Yikes. So you're basically supercharging the cancer supply line. You're force-feeding it.
That is the theoretical fear, yes. Huberman explicitly notes that many of our most effective, life-saving cancer drugs on the market today, drugs like Avastin,
Oh, they work.
they work by actively inhibiting VEGF. They destroy the blood vessels around the tumor. They literally choke the tumor to death. They starve it.
And BPC-157 does the exact opposite of that.
Yes. It does the exact opposite mechanism of a proven cancer drug.
I mean, that seems like a pretty clear, massive red flag. Hey, don't take the experimental chemical that acts like the mirror opposite of chemotherapy.
It is a massive red flag for many clinicians. Dr. Sung and Dr. Durst both advise strongly against using any peptides like BPC if there is any personal or family history of active cancer.
It's just a logical precaution.
It is. If you have cancer, you categorically do not want to be stimulating systemic growth factors.
Dr. Bachmeier didn't agree with this at all.
Not even a little bit.
He got really fired up about this specific point.
He vehemently disagrees. In fact, he flat out called the idea that BPC-157 causes or feeds cancer obnoxiously stupid thinking.
Tell us how you really feel, Trevor.
He does not hold back. But his argument isn't just bluster, it's based on a completely different biological philosophy. Homeostasis. Balance.
Explain that from his perspective.
He argues that cancer does not just happen randomly. He says cancer thrives in a very specific, degraded cellular environment.
What kind of environment?
One of chronic inflammation, poor cellular oxygenation, and systemic immune system failure. Basically, he says cancer loves a broken body.
Okay, I follow that.
And since BPC-157 is proven to fix systemic inflammation and profoundly improves blood flow and oxygen delivery.
He's saying it fixes the broken environment.
Exactly. He argues that by completely restoring a healthy biological environment, BPC-157 actually makes it significantly harder for cancer to survive and replicate.
That is a total 180-degree flip.
It is, and he takes it a step further. He cites studies, and again, we must clarify those are mostly animal or isolated cell studies, not human trials.
Right, the rat caveat.
Always the rat caveat. But he cites data suggesting BTC actively promotes the function of something called P53.
P53, that sounds like a stealth bomber or a fighter jet.
It's actually much cooler than a fighter jet. In cellular biology, P53 is literally known as the guardian of the genome.
Guardian of the genome. I love that.
It's an incredibly important tumor suppressor protein.
What does it do?
Its entire job is to constantly scan your DNA for dangerous mutations.
Okay.
If P53 finds a cell that has taken on too much damage and is starting to turn cancerous, It steps in and forces that cell to commit suicide.
It kills the bad cell before it can multiply.
Exactly. The scientific term is apoptosis, programmed cell death.
So Dr. Bachmeier is arguing that taking BPC-157 actually wakes up the guardian.
Yes. He argues BPC enhances the activity of natural killer cells and boosts P53, actively helping the body recognize and destroy cancer cells rather than feeding them.
Okay, so as a listener, I am sitting here with severe whiplash.
It's a lot to process.
We have two incredibly smart, completely opposing theories from medical professionals. Theory A. It feeds the tumor by building new blood vessels via VEGF.
And theory B, it fixes the immune system and boosts P53 so the body can kill the tumor itself.
So, who is actually right?
We don't know.
That is deeply uncomforting.
I know it is, but it is the absolute truth of where the science is right now. We have incredibly compelling theoretical arguments on both sides.
And no way to break the tie.
We have rat studies showing it doesn't promote tumors. We have mechanisms showing it could. But what we do not have is long-term human safety data.
We don't have a 10-year study of 5,000 BPC users to see if their cancer rates went up or down compared to the general public.
Exactly. That data simply does not exist on planet Earth today.
So if you decide to take this peptide, you are effectively the test subject for that future data.
You are the lab rat. And that is the complex risk calculation every single user has to make for themselves.
Okay. Let's pivot to the practical side.
Let's do it.
Let's say a listener is sitting there with a nagging, agonizing rotator cuff injury. They haven't slept properly in months. They've weighed the cancer risks. They are desperate for relief, and they decide, you know what? I'm going to be the lab rat.
It happens every day.
How are people actually taking this stuff?
This brings us to the logistics. Delivery and dosage. And surprise, surprise, even here in the practical application, there is a massive debate.
Of course there is. Nothing about this topic is simple.
The main divide in the community is between injections versus oral capsules.
Dr. Bachmeier was pretty definitive on this one, if I remember the source correctly.
He was incredibly definitive. He stated that oral BPC-157 is 0% bioavailable for healing musculoskeletal injuries.
0%.
He says if you swallow it in a pill, it is absolutely fantastic for healing your stomach ulcers or your leaky gut, but it will never reach your torn shoulder.
So he says you have to inject it.
He believes any systemic effects, healing the shoulder, repairing the brain, absolutely require injection. Specifically, subcutaneous injection.
Subcutaneous. That means injecting it into the fat layer right under the skin, right? Like how a diabetic takes insulin.
Yes. Usually with a tiny insulin syringe right into the belly fat.
I have to be completely honest here.
Yeah.
The idea of buying a strange powder from the internet, mixing it with bacteriostatic water myself, and sticking a needle into my own stomach, that is a massive, massive barrier to entry for most normal people.
It is a huge psychological barrier. It feels very medical. It feels hardcore.
It does. But Dr. Durst and Dr. Sung seemed a bit more open to the oral version in their discussion, didn't they?
They did, but they were talking about a very specific formulation.
Right.
They specifically recommended BPC-157 arginate salt.
Arginate salt. How is that different from the normal stuff?
Normal BPC, the kind you usually inject, is typically formulated as an acetate salt. It degrades very quickly in the harsh acid of the stomach if you try to swallow it.
Okay.
The arginate salt version was specifically chemically modified to be highly stable in gastric acid.
So it survives the stomach?
The theory is that it survives the stomach acid, gets absorbed intact through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream, and then can actually travel systemically to heal your shoulder or your knee.
So you could just take a pill?
They argue it can be highly effective, especially for patients who are just completely needle averse.
Which is most people.
True, though even they admit the injection remains the absolute gold standard for targeted injury repair.
Okay, speaking of targeted injections.
Yeah.
Here is a fascinating nuance about how this works that Huberman pointed out.
About where to inject it.
Yes, because BPC is systemic.
Right.
Meaning, if I hurt my left elbow playing tennis, I don't necessarily have to take a needle and inject it directly into the inflamed tissue of my left elbow.
Thank God for that, because injecting a joint is extremely painful and best left to a professional.
Exactly. You can just inject it into the fat on your stomach.
And because it travels through the blood vessels, it will eventually find the injury.
It essentially has a biological GPS for inflammation.
Yes, that's exactly how it works. Severely inflamed tissue sends out chemical distress signals called cytokines.
Cytokines.
BPC-157 floating in the bloodstream is naturally drawn to those specific cytokine signals. It follows the breadcrumbs to the fire.
That is so cool. Though I should mention, the sources did note that some hardcore bodybuilders absolutely swear by local injection. They want to put the needle right next to the muscle tear.
They do, and it might provide a slightly higher local concentration, but the underlying science suggests the belly fat injection is perfectly fine for systemic healing.
Now, in the wild world of biohacking, you very rarely see people just taking one single compound.
Oh, never. They love to mix things.
They talk about stacking.
Stacking, taking multiple things to create a synergistic effect.
And the most common partner for BPC-157, the peanut butter to its jelly, is something called TB-500.
Yes, the Wolverine stack. You almost never hear someone talk about BPC without immediately bringing up TB-500.
So what is TB-500?
It is a synthetic version of a naturally occurring peptide called thymosin beta-4.
Another peptide. Where does this one come from?
While BPC comes from the stomach, thymosin beta-4 is heavily concentrated in the thymus gland.
The thymus gland. That's in the chest, right?
Right behind the sternum. And here's a really fascinating biological fact about the thymus. It's absolutely massive and incredibly active in children.
Okay.
But as we hit puberty and continue to age into adulthood, the thymus rapidly shrinks and basically just turns into inactive fat tissue.
Which perfectly explains why my 5-year-old can fall off a 10-foot slide, bounce off the mulch, and keep running. But if I trip on a rug in the hallway, my back is out for a week.
Exactly. Kids are basically made of rubber. Their internal repair systems are running at 100% capacity.
And adults running at, like, 20%.
If we're lucky, TB-500 is theoretically thought to temporarily restore that youthful, rapid healing capacity.
So how do they work together? If BPC-157 is the conductor building the new blood vessels, what role does TB-500 play?
Think of TB-500 as the transporter, or the recruiter. Its primary biological mechanism involves interacting with a cellular protein called actin.
Actin.
Actin is essentially the mechanical scaffolding that allows cells to physically move and change shape.
Yeah, cells move.
Oh, they have to. When you have a massive injury, repair cells and immune cells have to physically migrate from the bloodstream into the damaged tissue. They have to literally crawl there.
I never really thought about that.
TB-500 strongly upregulates actin, making those crucial cells much more mobile and flexible.
So, BPC builds the new roads.
And TB-500 makes sure the cellular trucks can drive down those roads at 100 miles per hour to deliver the supplies.
That is a brilliant synergy. It totally explains why they're constantly prescribed together.
Exactly. BPC creates the necessary vascular environment. TB-500 delivers the biological workforce.
Okay, what about dosing? If someone is actually going to try this stack, do they just guess? Do they just fill up a syringe and hope for the best?
Unfortunately, a lot of people do just consult Dr. Internet on Reddit, which is incredibly risky.
Very risky.
But if we look at the clinical protocols discussed by the doctors and our sources, the dosage is usually measured in very small amounts, micrograms.
Microgram, so a fraction of a milligram.
Right. A standard little glass vial you buy might contain 5 milligrams of the peptide powder. A typical daily injection dose is often cited around 500 micrograms.
Which is just half a milligram per day.
Right. Very tiny amount.
And do you just take it every day forever?
That completely depends on which expert you ask.
Let's hear the options.
Dr. Sung suggests a strict cycling schedule. He recommends something like 5 days on, 2 days off.
Why take the 2 days off if you want to heal faster?
To prevent receptor desensitization.
Meaning the body gets used to it.
Exactly. If you constantly bombard a cellular receptor with a strong signal day after day, the body sometimes downgrades that receptor to protect itself. It essentially stops listening to the signal.
So the 2-day break keeps the body sensitive to the peptide.
Right. Huberman also frequently mentions cycling. He talks about taking it daily for maybe 8 to 10 weeks to aggressively heal a specific injury, and then stopping completely to let the body reset.
Which heavily contrasts with Dr. Bachmeyer's approach.
It does. Bachmeyer advocates for the forever protocol.
He takes a lower dose every single day, indefinitely.
Because again, his philosophy is that he isn't just treating a temporary injury. He is actively maintaining a permanent state of heightened cellular repair against the toxicity of the modern world.
Though even he admits that long-term uncycled use is highly controversial.
It is. We simply do not know what happens if you artificially keep those pathways turned on for 20 years.
Okay, we really have to talk about where people are actually getting this stuff, because this is, without a doubt, the sketchiest and potentially most dangerous part of the whole story.
It absolutely is.
You can't just walk into a CVS or a Walgreens and pick up a neat little pack of Wolverine peptides in the supplement aisle.
No. And this brings us to Section 6 of our dive, the black market and the severe purity risks.
Because honestly, this might be more immediately dangerous than the peptide itself.
It is. Because BPC-157 is currently not FDA approved for human consumption.
Right.
Outside of finding a highly specialized progressive doctor and a licensed compounding pharmacy, you are forced to enter the gray market.
You are buying what they call research chemicals.
Yes!
I have seen these websites. They are wild. They have these massive disclaimers in bold red text on every page that say, not for human consumption, for laboratory research purposes only.
And right next to that dire legal disclaimer is a giant photo of a fitness model with six-pack abs holding a dumbbell.
Exactly. Such an obvious wink and a nod. They are selling it directly to you so you can research it on your own personal lab rat.
Which just happens to be you.
Right. It's a blatant legal loophole to avoid FDA regulation.
But here's the real physical danger for the user. It's
Yeah.
not just about dodging the FDA or legality. It is about the purity of what is actually inside that vial.
What's wrong with the purity?
Both Dr. Sung and Huberman issue severe warnings about something called LPS,
LPS, what does that stand for?
lipopolysaccharides.
That sounds extremely bad. What is a lipopolysaccharide?
In plain English, it is essentially bacterial poop,
Bacterial poop.
or more accurately, the toxic skeletons of dead bacteria.
Okay, how does dead bacteria end up in a vial of healing peptides?
Think about how these synthetic peptides are actually manufactured at scale. They don't just magically appear. They are often synthesized inside massive industrial vats of genetically modified bacteria.
Like E. coli.
Exactly. They use E. coli to pump out the peptide sequence.
Okay.
If the manufacturing lab is cheap, say, it's an unregulated bargain basement lab overseas cutting corners, and they do not perfectly purify the final product before bottling it.
Parts of those bacteria remain in the powder.
Yes. Bacterial endotoxins are left behind in the vial.
And if you take that powder, mix it with water, and physically inject bacterial skeletons directly into your bloodstream.
Your immune system absolutely freaks out.
I would imagine so.
It thinks you have a massive systemic blood infection. It triggers a violent inflammatory cascade. You get severe redness at the injection site, intense swelling, massive flu-like symptoms.
We literally feel like you've been hit by a truck.
Yes.
Which is just tragically ironic.
Yeah. It is the ultimate irony. You are spending your hard-earned money, and you are overcoming the fear of sticking a needle into your stomach entirely to reduce pain and inflammation.
But because you bought the cheap stuff off a sketchy website.
You are actively injecting a highly potent toxic inflammatory agent directly into your body.
It completely negates the entire point of taking the peptide.
It's much worse than negating it. It can be incredibly dangerous. Endotoxemia is no joke. Severe septic shock is a real physiological possibility if the vial contamination is high enough.
So the practical takeaway there is overwhelmingly clear. Do not, under any circumstances, buy cheap injectable peptides from a random website that accepts Bitcoin.
If you are going to take this risk, the sources are completely unanimous. Go to a medical professional.
Get a real prescription.
And get it filled by a highly regulated US-based compounding pharmacy that does independent third-party testing for purity. You need to know with absolute certainty that what is in that vial is BPC-157 and only BPC-157.
Okay. Wow. We have covered a massive amount of ground today. My brain is honestly leaking a little bit trying to hold all this science.
It's a dense topic.
It is. So let's try to pull all this together and summarize the risks versus the rewards here.
Let's do it.
I want to play a little game of good cop, bad cop to close this out.
I'm ready.
You give me the bad cop, skeptical summary first. Tell our listener why they should run far, far away from this compound.
Okay, the skeptical summary is this. BPC-157 is an unproven, highly experimental compound.
Okay.
It is strictly banned by WADA, so if you are a competitive athlete at any level, touching this will get you suspended and ruin your career.
A huge risk for athletes.
Furthermore, it has absolutely zero long-term human safety data. We literally do not know if it causes cancer 10 years down the line, and there is a very plausible biological mechanism, VEGF angiogenesis, by which it could rapidly feed hidden tumors.
Scary stuff.
Plus, if you buy it from the wrong unregulated source, you might be injecting highly toxic bacterial endotoxins into your blood.
Also bad.
And finally, there is a very mathematically high probability that any miraculous relief you feel is simply a powerful, very expensive placebo effect because you desperately want to be out of pain.
Ouch. That is a devastatingly compelling case for don't do it. It sounds completely reckless when you lay it all out like that.
It does.
But now, switch hats. Give me the good cop, optimistic summary. Give me the Wolverine pitch. Why are so many intelligent people risking it?
The optimistic summary is this. This compound perfectly mimics the body's own natural repair signals. It isn't a completely alien foreign chemical. It is a sequence your own stomach lining already makes every day.
It's natural to us.
Right. It also has an incredibly high safety profile in decades of animal studies. Researchers have literally tried to overdose rats on it and struggle to even find a lethal dose threshold.
Wow, so it's relatively non-toxic chemically.
Exactly. And unlike traditional painkillers or cortisone steroid shots, which just temporarily mask the pain while actively weakening your collagen tissue over time, BPC-157 attempts to actually fix the root cause of the injury.
By building the blood flow and repairing the structure.
Right. For people who have been trapped in chronic, debilitating pain for years, who have quote-unquote failed physical therapy, who are staring down the barrel of a third expensive surgery, it represents a literal lifeline.
A second chance.
It's a real chance to heal when modern medicine has basically patted them on the back and told them, you just have to learn to live with the pain.
It really is a profound double-edged sword. It is pure hope, balanced perfectly against unknown risk.
It sits right on the bleeding edge between revolutionary, paradigm-shifting medicine and completely reckless biohacking.
And that edge is a very dangerous place to walk.
It is.
So, what is the final verdict here?
The final verdict is that we are squarely in the Wild West phase of this technology. The underlying biological science is incredibly promising, but the rigorous clinical proof is completely lacking.
We were just waiting for the hard data to finally catch up to the thousands of glowing anecdotes. You know, it reminds me of what Dr. Bachmeier said about the environment. That we need a biological upgrade to survive the modern world.
It's a very provocative thought to end on, and actually, I'll leave you with this one final concept to chew on regarding that.
Let's hear it.
Think about this. BPC-157 is made naturally in our stomachs. Our bodies clearly know how to synthesize this sequence.
Right.
But obviously, we stop making enough of it to rapidly heal our systemic injuries as we get into our 30s, 40s, and 50s.
Lose the Wolverine ability. Why?
That's the question. Is it simply an evolutionary flaw? Did nature just forget to keep the repair factory running?
Yeah.
Or is it a highly evolved safety mechanism?
What do you mean?
Does the human body intentionally dial back rapid systemic healing and angiogenesis in our middle age, specifically to prevent dormant things like cancer from growing too fast?
Oh, wow. That is a chilling thought. Maybe we heal slowly for a very good reason.
Exactly. If we unilaterally decide to override that ancient mechanism, if we force the body to aggressively heal like a teenager when we are 50 years old, what is the ultimate biological cost?
Are we outsmarting evolution, or are we just kicking open a door that was locked for our own protection?
It's the ultimate biohacking dilemma.
If human trials ever do eventually prove this works safely, will this completely replace the multi-billion-dollar pharmaceutical industry of painkillers and anti-inflammatories?
Or will the long-term cancer risks emerge and relegate BPC-157 to the dusty dustbin of medical history alongside radioactive toothpaste?
Only time and actual rigorous human trials will tell.
Absolutely.
Until then, to everyone listening, please stay curious, keep exploring these frontiers, but for the love of God, stay skeptical. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
See you next time.
We partner with Ascension Peptides, who supply pharma-grade peptides. Click on the link to learn more.